So, you sent over this really interesting newsletter this week about those check the back seat warnings in newer
Oh
cars.
yeah, it's quite something, isn't it?
It really is. Kind of bizarre. We have all this amazing tech, but we need a dashboard light to remind us about potentially leaving a child behind.
In a hot car, yeah. Tragically.
So that's what we're diving into today, this paradox. Why the warnings? What's the actual science behind how this can even happen? And what does it say about, well, modern life and the pressures we're all under?
It's a tough subject. The statistic you mentioned, over 40 kids a year in the US, it's just staggering.
Absolutely. And the newsletter made a great point. This tech, it feels like a Band-Aid, right? Like it's trying to fix a symptom, maybe not the deeper issue.
Exactly. It's addressing the immediate danger, which is vital, of course, but doesn't quite get to the why.
And the newsletter dove into the neuroscience, which I found fascinating, this idea of the autopilot brain.
Our basal ganglia, specifically, it's like
Right.
the brain system for habits. Driving to work, locking the door stuff you do without really thinking.
But your commute is usually automatic.
Totally. It's super efficient. But that efficiency is also its weakness. When you introduce something new, something outside the routine, like, say, adding a daycare drop-off you don't normally do,
Yeah.
that autopilot system, the basal ganglia, can just steamroll right over it. It follows the ingrained path. The new information, the child in the back seat, it's like it doesn't fully register against that strong, established habit. It's not about forgetting you care. It's a system failure almost.
And it's not just the change in routine, is it? The newsletter really emphasized stress and lack of sleep, things so many people, especially parents, deal with constantly.
Oh, absolutely. Stress and sleep deprivation directly impact the prefrontal cortex.
That's the executive function part. Planning, awareness.
Exactly. It's crucial for staying present and making conscious decisions. When you're exhausted, stressed, juggling a million things, your cognitive resources are just drained.
Makes sense.
So those memory lapses become much, much more likely. And importantly, the newsletter pointed out it's usually not about, say, being distracted by a phone call.
Right. That's often the assumption.
But in most cases, the caregiver genuinely, tragically believed the child was somewhere else entirely. Already dropped off, maybe. It's about that cognitive overload hitting a vulnerable moment in the brain's processing.
Which brings up another point from the newsletter.
Yeah.
Are we just going to become desensitized? Like the seatbelt chime you eventually tune out?
That's a real risk.
Yeah.
Alarm fatigue is a known phenomenon. If it's just another beep or light, eventually its effectiveness could definitely fade.
So what can actually work then? The newsletter mentioned layered tech.
Yeah, so moving beyond just a passive warning light, some car makers, like Hyundai and Kia were mentioned, are using actual sensors. Ultrasonic sensors in the back that can detect movement, detect if someone's actually there after the car is off.
Okay, that feels more proactive.
It is. And then there are behavioral nudges, not just an alert, but linking it to an action. Like maybe the alert prompts you to text your partner confirming the drop-off, or links to a daycare check-in, something that requires a conscious step.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. Closing the loop.
Exactly. And we shouldn't forget low-tech cultural shifts, too. Things like normalizing those baby on board signs again, or the simple trick of putting your purse or phone in the back seat next to the child. A visual reminder.
Simple, but potentially effective. But the newsletter didn't stop there, right? It pushed into the bigger systemic stuff.
Right, because these individual tragedies don't happen in a vacuum. Think about it. The U.S. lack of guaranteed paid parental leave. That contributes massively to parental exhaustion.
Definitely.
Then there's the societal pressure, the stigma sometimes around asking for help, feeling like you have to manage everything perfectly alone. Isolation is a factor.
And even just our reliance on cars. More car trips, more backseat access, statistically increases the opportunities for this kind of error.
It all connects. The design of our lives, our society, plays a role.
So, navigating this, the newsletter talked about empathy plus innovation. What does that look like?
Well, it's about combining smart solutions with a more supportive environment. Policy-wise, maybe mandating those rear seat sensors in all new cars that was proposed a few years back.
Right.
Community-wise, it's campaigns like Look Before You Log, but also just normalizing checking in on fellow parents, offering support, reducing that isolation.
And tech can still play a role, but maybe smarter tech, linked to apps we already use.
Potentially, yeah. Alerts tied to calendar events, daycare check-ins, things like that, making the technology work more seamlessly with our lives.
The newsletter finished with that really powerful quote from a grieving parent. This isn't a parenting problem, it's a human problem.
It hits hard, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes you think, yes, technology can help, reminders can help. But truly tackling this means looking at the burnout, the lack of support systems, the flawed designs, realizing we're all human, all susceptible under enough pressure. It leaves me wondering, maybe the sheer frequency of these events isn't just about individual memory lapses, but more a sign that our modern environment is simply overloading our collective human capacity to cope.